Back in 2009, Dan Brown dropped The Lost Symbol, the book everyone was waiting for after the massive success of the Da Vinci Code. And man, it sold like crazy. Over 1 million copies on day one. Readers were so ready to dive back into another Masonic mystery, this time in Washington, D.C. But when they got to the end, a lot of people felt like the big reveal was, well, kind of flat. So what if the book's real secret wasn't in the final chapter at all?
You know, this quote from critic David Sugarts really nails the feeling a lot of readers had. It captures that collective sigh of disappointment. I mean, you go on this insane 12-hour chase for some world-altering secret, and the big prize is a Bible buried under the Washington Monument. Now, don't get me wrong, it's an incredibly important book, for sure. But a lost secret? Not so much.
And that brings us to the real question we're digging into today. What if that letdown was the whole point? What if it was just a smokescreen for a much darker, way more controversial truth that Dan Brown found in his research? A secret so big, he decided to bury it deep inside the text, creating a kind of puzzle for his biggest fans to solve.
Yeah, the theory goes that the story we actually read wasn't the one Brown originally set out to write. There's some pretty compelling evidence that suggests he had a major change of heart, and it was probably because of the absolute firestorm that erupted worldwide after the Da Vinci Code. Just take a look at this timeline. The book was first teased way back in 2003. It was supposed to come out in 2006 with the title The Solomon Key, but then, nothing. It was delayed for 3 whole years. And in that time, Dan Brown went from a pretty obscure author to a global celebrity, facing lawsuits and getting condemned by the Catholic Church. It's not a huge leap to think he decided his original plot was just way too hot to handle.
And check this out. The first edition cover of The Lost Symbol has a big, prominent key on it. It's a clear holdover from that original title, The Solomon Key. It's almost like a ghost of the story that could have been, a hint that the book was changed so late in the game that they didn't even have time to update the cover art.
Okay, so if Brown did hide a secret, where's the breadcrumb trail? Well, it all starts with what looks like a deliberate mistake, hidden right in plain sight at the climax of the story. And it all revolves around one single repeated word, oculus.
So just so we're all on the same page, an oculus is, by definition, a round eye-like opening. You usually see them at the top of a dome. Dan Brown is a guy known for his meticulous research, and he uses this exact word, oculus, 11 times to describe the skylight in the house of the temple. He makes it sound like this crucial, symbolic portal to the heavens.
But here's the thing. The real skylight isn't an oculus at all. It's not even close to round. It's a perfect square, made up of a 6x6 grid of 36 panes of glass. So that begs the question, why would an expert in symbols and architecture make such a basic mistake? Not once, but over and over again.
The theory we're looking at says this is no mistake. It's a flashing red light. Brown is basically using the wrong word on purpose to get us to look closer, to make us notice the one thing he doesn't talk about, the 6x6 grid. It's like a magician's misdirection. He's pointing at the oculus so we don't pay attention to the square. And that 6x6 grid? Well, that's the key. The whole novel is jam-packed with puzzles based on magic squares. And for anyone who doesn't know, those are just grids of numbers where every row, column, and diagonal adds up to the same number. This architectural clue in the ceiling points to a very specific magic square that Brown conveniently leaves out of the story. Remember this quote from the book, "The secret hides within the order"? It's presented as a 6-word puzzle. Now, in the book, it leads Langdon to an Order 8 magic square. But what if the number of words, 6, is the real clue? What if it's pointing us to an Order 6 magic square, the exact one that would fit perfectly into that 6x6 skylight? Okay, so on the left, you're seeing the Order 6 magic square. It's from a 16th century occult book called De Occulta Philosophia, which, by the way, is mentioned by name in the novel. And on the right, there's that 6x6 skylight. The theory here is that the skylight is basically a physical blueprint for this specific magic square, which is known as the magic square of the sun.
So this particular square is just soaked in mystical numerology. Its magic constant, that's the number that every row, column, and diagonal adds up to, is 111. According to Agrippa's old text, that number is tied to an angel named Nachiel, but it also unlocks a connection to a much, much darker figure.
And the math here is, honestly, it's shockingly simple. You just take that magic constant, 111, and you multiply it by the order of the square, which is 6. And the result?
666, the very number Agrippa links to Sorath, the demon of the sun. All of a sudden, that heavenly oculus is starting to look a whole lot less angelic.
So now we've got two very important numbers, 111 and 666. And this is where the theory gets really wild, because it argues these numbers aren't just in some old book. They are literally encoded into the architecture of Washington, D.C.'s most iconic landmark. The book's grand finale, of course, is at the Washington Monument. Dan Brown tells us over and over that its official height is 555 feet, a very Masonic repeating digit, or rep digit. And that's a well-known fact. But the real secret, the one Brown doesn't mention, is hidden in another dimension.
The square base of the monument, which was designed by a Freemason named Robert Mills, was built to be 55.5 feet on each side. Okay, seems normal enough. But what happens if you convert 55.5 feet into inches? You get exactly 666 inches. The number of the sun demon is literally the foundation that America's monument to its first president is built on.
This old Masonic saying, "as above, so below," is the key to the final piece of this puzzle. It's this idea of a hidden symmetry, that whatever you see above the ground has a secret, corresponding part hidden below the ground.
And here's the bombshell. The hypothesis proposes that there is a hidden foundation that goes exactly 111 feet deep. So you take the visible 555 feet, you add this hidden 111 feet, and the monument's true total symbolic height becomes 666 feet, a structure with an angelic number buried underground and a diabolical number for its total height.
I know, it's a shocking idea, but the numbers fit together with this spooky mathematical perfection. It's like what Robert Langdon would call a symbolon, a code that's been broken into two pieces, just waiting for someone to put them back together. And if we use Roman numerals, a system Dan Brown just loves to use in his puzzles, the code gets even more elegant. The part above ground, 555, is written as DLV. The hypothetical foundation, 111, is written as CXI. Two separate symmetrical pieces of a puzzle.
Now watch this. When you interlock those two sets of Roman numerals, DLV and CXI, they fit together perfectly to form DCLXVI. And what is that? It's the Roman numeral for 666. And it's not just any old way of writing it. DCLXVI is special because it uses each of the first 6 Roman symbols, D, C, L, X, V, and I, exactly one time. It is a perfect interlocking code.
So let's just quickly retrace our steps. It starts with a deliberate error in the book, the oculus, which points us to a 6x6 grid. That grid connects us to an ancient magic square whose key numbers are 111 and 666. And then those exact same numbers are found encoded into the hidden and visible dimensions of the Washington Monument, creating a perfect numerical symbol right in the heart of the U.S. Capitol.
So, in the end, we're left with this one big question. Is this all just a web of absolutely mind-blowing coincidences? Or did Dan Brown stumble onto a secret so profoundly disturbing that he felt he had to bury it inside a fictional puzzle, leaving all the clues for us to piece together because the truth was just far too dangerous to say out loud? Well, that's for you to decide.